Coming up on The Returned.
Like an energetic ocean. There were four figures, a very feminine energy. They took me to this other realm and I could feel, I didn't see anybody, but I just felt this incredible oneness. They gave me a choice. Do you want to stay here or do you want to go back to the material plane?
Hi, and welcome to The Returned. Here's to everything we'll discover together. Hi, and welcome to The Returned. If you're new here, I'm MJ, and in this space, we share near-death stories, out-of-body experiences, spiritual awakenings, signs from spirit, and the journeys of healers and light workers from around the world. Well, today, you guys, I'm honored to be sitting with Elton Anderson. His journey includes a near-death experience brought on by malaria. What he returned with carries insight, perspective, truth, and today he's here to share it with us. Elton, welcome to The Returned.
MJ, what's up? So good to have you here. Or not have you here, but be on here with you.
Well, yeah, I was on here with you a little while ago while you were
Right.
sleeping.
MJ caught me
I'm
sleeping
sorry, I had to
pre-show.
bring it up.
Oh, it's okay. We all sleep, so I'm not really. That's not
That's
embarrassing.
right. You were just waiting to come on. That was awesome. Well, I'm so happy you're here, Elton. So happy. Before we step in to your spiritual and extraordinary parts of your experience, I wanted to start with the human journey. What did your belief system look like prior to your near-death experience?
That's a great place to start. I would say that um, I wasn't conscious at all in terms of where I am now, and I like to tell people I was really focused on the material world and being successful. So that meant after college, I immediately went into the corporate world 9 to 5. I was working at Pfizer doing pharmaceutical sales, making six
Wow.
figures. Yeah, making six figures and bought my first house at 24. And I've always been competitive. I've always chased success and I've always achieved success. And then after a while, I would say this was probably like the first chance of spirit maybe talking to me because after working for about 2 or 3 years, I actually won a camera at my job. So because it was sales, you can win like golf clubs or, gift cards. And I said, you know what, I'll get a camera. Why not? And this was 2007. And within a year, I became so obsessed with this camera. During lunch breaks, I would go to Barnes and Noble and read every book on photography. After work, I would get on blogs and websites and look at all these different images and pictures. And then on the weekends, I would shoot people. I even went so far as going on Craigslist to shoot strangers because I didn't want to shoot friends anymore. I wanted to shoot, I want to get experience shooting people that I didn't know. So I was putting ads like a creep on Craigslist, like, "Hey, I just want to take pictures of strangers." That was wild. But I bring that up because I got the first whisper I can really think about was, "Hey, quit your job and pursue photography." And it took me a while because you got to think about it. This was 2008 and there was no Instagram, there was no Facebook, there was no social media. And the thought of quitting your job to take photos back in that day was insane. But there was something in me that said, Elton, follow that dream, follow that voice. And so I followed it. So although it wasn't spiritual, I think it was. I think it was, now that I know that voice was from my soul. But at the time, at the time, I didn't think that it was anything special. I just thought I was like one of my crazy side quests at the time. And so then we went on, the career started to grow. I eventually moved to LA in 2012, and then my career really took off. And so the success that I had always been chasing began to come to me even more. And still no deeply like spiritual awakening type of energy, no deep consciousness. I remember around that time people started really getting into manifestation and the secret. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking everybody was so weird for doing vision boards. I said, "What is this?" I was like, "What?" I was like, "What is a vision board? What is manifestation?" And I just remember thinking people were so weird. I didn't even know what my sign was at the time. And like now I know that I'm a Pisces sun, a Cancer moon, and a Scorpio rising. So I'm triple water. And now I finally make sense to myself. But at the time, none of that, I had no clue. So my belief system was just in hard work breeds success, and you gotta grind and hustle, and then you'll get what you want. But I'd never considered a spiritual leg to that.
Mm-hmm. I'm right. Can you take us into your travels and
Yeah.
how you ended up catching malaria that then led to your NDE?
Yeah, oh yeah. So travel was a huge part of my personality and my brand online. And when I quit my job in 2008, I I had a camera, I bought a skateboard, and I got my passport. And I did all of that within like the same week.
Hmm.
So as soon as I got my passport, I had I had this lust for traveling all over the world. And the first country I went to was Jamaica. I remember that. And, that was really close to Miami. I was living in Miami again. And, that was really close. But I wanted more. And so at the time I was shooting weddings, and I was able to start booking international weddings. And it was so funny because I think I was journaling. And what I
Uh-huh.
remember now that I think about it, it was the journal, the intentions I was putting into the journal. Now that I'm like thinking about it, that got me to where I wanted to go. So I'm really big on writing your reality. If you look at my screen name, if you look at my TikTok name, it is called Elton Raw, RAW. And that's not anything like freaky or anything like that, but raw really stands for reality's already written. Because I believe
I
that
like that.
I believe that our lives are written freehand according to the Akashic records. We just have to remember what we are.
Right.
So my traveling journey started to grow. My lust for travel started to grow. And so when I moved to LA, it really took off. So my routine was work for 3 months and then travel for 2 weeks. And when I would travel for 2 weeks, I would go to a different region. So let's say I would go to South America for 2 weeks. I would travel to Brazil, Peru, Chile, as many places I could get in. And then I would go to Southeast Asia for 2 weeks. I would travel to Cambodia or Bali or Malaysia, kinda like that kinda
Mhm.
track. And so social media finally was starting to pick up. And because I was really great with a camera, I was able to take these really amazing pictures, really dive into culture, and really share my travels with the world. So that's what I decided to do. And I kind of became known for being a traveler online. So much so that in 2017, a casting director reached out to me, and they offered me this chance to be in a commercial in Uganda, walking next to gorillas. Like they had actual huge silverback gorillas. It's called gorilla trekking. And I'm in this commercial for Chase Sapphire with James Corden, and literally it was nationally televised. It was played at the Emmys. It was played on all the television channels. It was such an amazing experience. And some would call that manifestation, but I still never thought that it was anything special. I don't know. It's so weird how my brain thought. And then
Hmm.
the year after that, I got offered a television show to host a travel show on a network here in the States called TV1. And that was amazing. I had an amazing co-host, and we traveled around the United States because it was really focused on Black culture. So it's called Lens of
Okay.
Culture. And so we started
Mhm.
in New York. So we would go to Harlem and Brooklyn where the culture was great. We would go to New Orleans, which comes up big in my story. Then we would go to Dominican Republic and parts of St. Thomas and parts of the Caribbean. And the
Mhm.
final episode was in Ghana. And so this is 2019 when we actually filmed. So we filmed from April 2019 to August 2019. And I was so excited. I had been to several countries in Africa, but Ghana was always where I wanted to go. My mother's from a neighboring country called Liberia. And so my African roots always get lit up when I get to go to different parts of Africa. And but when we talk about the whisper, I got this whisper when we were filming the New Orleans episode. And the same whisper that told me to quit my job and become a photographer, the same whisper that told me to move to LA in 2012 and become a celebrity and commercial photographer was the same whisper that told me in July of 2019, in the middle of shooting an episode, the voice said, Elton, leave America and give up all your stuff and travel the world for a year. And I was like, "Huh?" I was like, I'm in stride. I'm living the best life I could. Like, why would I leave?" And the whisper only comes one time, and it means what it says. So
That's
when I
right.
got back from that episode, before I went to Ghana, I ended up doing exactly that. So I gave up everything. I had a dream apartment, this dream loft where everybody would come, all these celebrities would come to shoot with me. I had my dream car, I had my dream friendships, relationships. My whole life was perfect, but I still decided to give up everything to put everything that I owned at the time into two bags. So I was listening to these whispers and feeling so crazy because at the time I had everything that I wanted on the outside. I had a ton of people that loved me, people that followed me on social media and worked with all these celebrities. So it was very, I won't say shallow, but it was a very superficial lifestyle, which is a big part of Instagram. But something started to shift in me, and I started to feel a little bit more spiritual. At the time, this was 2019, so I just turned 37 years old, and, I was creeping up on the midlife, so I was searching for other things, and I was finding it through travel. So I said, "I will probably find what I'm looking for on the other side of this year-long journey." But first, we had to finish out the, uh, the travel show series. So we're in Ghana. The episodes went great. We were there for 2 weeks. 2019 was the year of the return, and so there was a lot of fanfare. It was just a lot of great energy at that shoot. I've been to about 22, 23 countries in Africa, and in the past, I've always taken my malaria pills, but they've always made me sick. Like, I've always had a really bad reaction to taking preventative malaria, uh, pills. So I said, "You know what? I'm okay. I've been to Africa a ton of times, and I got, Liberian blood in me, so I should be okay." And so I get back from Ghana filming an episode. I get back end of August, I would say like August 28th. A friend had a 40th birthday. I go there, and the plan was to start my journey on September 1st. And I go to Brazil as my first stop. So I get to Brazil and I hit the ground running. I start climbing mountains and hang gliding. I'm going skateboarding down the street. I'm swimming every morning. I'm eating all the food. I'm recording my YouTube journey. So I was like, I'm going to be this big YouTube star. I'm going to travel the world and get me a show. And even ESPN, not ESPN, CNN had hit me up too. Were interested in
Oh,
having me on television. Big Brother was interested in having me on television, and even The Bachelorette hit me up. But I was like, I can't do that because I'm gay,
mm-mm.
so can't quite be on The Bachelorette. But I was just really ready for this whole visibility career. Um, so the first 5, 6 days of Brazil was amazing, and then I remember it was the morning of day 6. It was September 6th, and which is like almost directly 6 months before my birthday. And I remember waking up and I said, "I feel like I am dying." Malaria is very interesting because malaria is actually a parasite, and it's a parasite that attaches to your red blood cells. So that means that it will attach to the red blood cells in your liver, in your pancreas, in your eyes, in your heart. So I started to develop shortness of breath. I couldn't walk. I
Wow.
was foggy headed, and I was like 30, I mean like 70% blind. And I
Oh, wow.
literally was worried about what I was like, I am dying. I had no clue what was going on because there was not a thought in my mind that I had malaria. And I call my mother and I say, Mom, I feel like I'm dying. I don't know what's going on, but I just want to give you my last my last words. And my mother, because I've always been so independent, because I've always been such a I always say that my parents never had to push me. I would always pull them. And because I was like that, um, when I called my mother literally expressing that I was about to die, she was basically was like, "I have been waiting for this my whole life. Like, let's go. This is my time to shine. I can finally
Oh,
step up for my son." And what she did was I called her maybe like 10 a.m. that morning. She was on a plane by 8 p.m. that night, and she was in Brazil. This 5'1" Liberian woman who speaks no Portuguese found her way to me in less than 24 hours. And but this during this time is when the NDE actually happened.
mm,
So I was in my Airbnb. I decided to just stay in there. And it was interesting because I don't remember time. There was no passage of time. It wasn't like I was looking at the clock. It wasn't like I remember, oh, it's been 5 hours. I just remember that time stood still. And I remember laying in the bed. And what happened after that was kind of it stuck with me, but I've always feel like I go right back there when I tell the story. So what happened was I didn't see any pearly gates or any angels, if you will, but I did feel this energy that felt almost like an energetic ocean.
mhm.
And this energetic ocean surrounded me. It was warm, but it was the type of warmth that you get from love, if that makes sense. It wasn't a
Yeah.
temperature warm, although it wasn't cold, but it was the warmth of love. unconditional love. And I remember that there were 4 figures, and the figures definitely felt feminine more than anything. And I remember it was just like a very feminine energy, a very flowy energy, a very light energy. They were pretty tall. I remember maybe close to like 9 or 10 feet, or maybe they were floating off the ground, but I just remember the height. I remember looking up as
Mhm.
I'm laying down, and they took me to this other realm, and I could feel I didn't like I said again, I didn't see anybody, but I just felt this incredible oneness, because when we come down to this earth, we are cursed with the illusion of differentiation.
Mhm.
We are blinded by the idea that we come from different sources. Skin skin color doesn't matter. There's no race. Sex or gender doesn't matter. That doesn't exist. Political views don't matter. Nothing matters except this oneness. And as I felt this oneness, they gave me a choice. They said it was like, do you want to stay here, or do you want to go back to the material plane? And I wanted to stay so bad, MJ, because it was such an act of surrender. But if I would have stayed in that realm, my mother would have killed me. So I decided, I said, it's best that I get back to Earth, because I do not want to upset this woman.
Aw. Mhm.
So, yeah, I just remember going in and out of this, kind of like double dutching in and out of this plane. And I remember when my mother landed and she found her way to my Airbnb, and all the strength I had was able to get into the wheelchair, get to the hospital. Luckily, there was one of the best infectious disease hospitals in all of Brazil, not too far from my Airbnb. So I was able to go there. And again, we didn't know what I had at the time. But then when I finally got there, they found out that I had malaria, and it had been in my body for weeks at this point. And so it had got everywhere. And what people don't know about malaria, or at least what I didn't know, is that it's very, very fatal. Like, only about 70% of the people that get malaria die. About 68 to 70% of people that get malaria literally die. Um, I've had several friends that have lost family members and parents to this debilitating parasite. So the fight back to life wasn't easy. Um, they put me up in the hospital. I had all kind of tubes in me and IVs, and there was one moment that I really felt really changed me, and that moment was when, because of my mother, they didn't have an extra bed in my room at the
Mhm.
hospital, and they only had 2 chairs. And I remember that I woke up one evening, and I remember that my mother was asleep, and her back was in one chair and her feet were in the other chair, and that's how she slept for 7 days. And I remember thinking, like, this is what love truly is. Like, this is the same love that I felt in the other realm, the same warmth. I was like, this is what it is. I had been addicted to the love I got from all of my quote unquote fans and people that were like, "Oh, Elton, you're so cool," or "Oh, Elton, I love your pictures," or "Oh, Elton, I love your show." That type of love is fine, but real love, unconditional love, can only be felt, not explained. It can only be performed, not spoken. And so to see my mother not worry about anything except my life and keeping me alive, it that's when I think I started to really understand and really step into my complete spiritual journey. And that was a moment where, the NDE, I told the four figures, I was like, I made the right choice to stay on this earthly plane. So that was the NDE. But then there's still a lot more story to go. But I'll stop there for now to see if you got any other questions.
Sure. I do have questions. Well, that was a pretty profound experience for you, wasn't it? I'm actually particularly interested in how you moved through your life. So how you navigated so many things that you went through here, like literally fame, so egoism.
Yeah,
Because you were given that life, do you think that that was pre-planned somehow for you?
most definitely.
Yeah.
Most,
And what do you
most.
think that would be for?
This is such a great question. I don't think I've never been asked this before. So in retrospect, in reverse, everything mattered. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, the fact that s- months before I decided to go on this journey and get malaria, I give away everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the whisper to give away everything, which wasn't a coincidence as we go deeper into the story. And the idea that I got the whisper to pursue photography when I had never owned a camera in my life, I had never even thought about being a creative. I was more focused on sales and marketing. I was like, I want to be chief marketing officer at a big firm. And for me to go down a creative path and do that, and then the opportunity to be on television. But I never wanted to be MJ. I never ever wanted to be in front of the camera. That was never a a desire of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, until it started happening, and then I was like, "Oh, this is actually pretty cool because I get to connect with more people." And I think my greatest gift in this world is connection. I feel like I've been blessed and gifted with the ability to connect, and I got scared to share that gift for the past 6 years. So, we can get into that, but I as we get into that, I started to realize that all of this was aligned. And remember I said, like, reality is already written? It
That's
felt
right.
like it was written already, and I was just living out the story that was already written because everything came to me on the other side of surrender. There was no choice.
So, do you think that because you experience such I don't even want to say fame because that's not the word I'm actually trying to convey. I'm actually trying to get to the point where you've experienced something greater and then you surrendered and you had to feel like you had nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
So, which isn't a bad thing, right? I'm definitely not saying this is a negative thing, but I am just curious the significance of the letting go of all of it to have nothing. You know what I
It
mean?
Yeah, no, I think that significance, I think that, people talk a lot about the law of attraction,
Mhm,
and what I've discovered is that the law of subtraction is really what changes you.
mhm.
Call it minimalism, call it boundaries, call it backpacking, whatever, there is a spiritual experience when you detach yourself from the physical and material items.
Mhm, mhm.
And if you know anything about the law of detachment, that is like really a cheat code to raising your frequency because
Right.
we are all frequency and energy. You just said that you are very intentional about your lighting. And I don't know if she's told you guys to her listeners, but she is very intentional about the lighting and the frequency and the wave that she has in her space. And I literally asked her before we started, I said, "What is this lighting? What is this energy?" Because you can just feel the glow emitting from
Mhm,
her in this space. And I learned how important that was of the waves and energy that we allow to be with us. So I think that the more things that we have, sometimes those things can own us. And I've
mhm,
learned that I wanted to be able to start finding home within myself. That's the only way we can have
mm,
wholeness. That's the only way that, you know, you get what I'm saying? Like, that's the only
I
way
do.
that we can really start to live in this experience.
That brings me to something else I had written down here, was you talk a lot about loving travel, and just what you said there, you were looking for something. I'm wondering if maybe your travel was like you on I'm just gonna put it really, like, basic, like, were you on a scavenger hunt looking for yourself and looking for that love? Is that why the travel was just like, "I need this"? All that other stuff that you actually experienced in your life meant nothing to you again, like, it didn't mean anything because you were looking for this one thing.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, and that's why even if we go deeper into the story, because life really began after the NDE. I'll give you a little bit, and then you can stop me whenever you need to,
Mhm.
because I want to answer your question, but I think the story answers the question.
Okay.
So, um, after the malaria, I lost about 25 pounds, and it was not a good it was not a good weight loss, and I lost a lot of energy, so I came back. After I got out of the hospital, I came back to the States, and I gotta say, the best thing ever, this is how God really works, because getting the malaria in Brazil was hands down the best thing that could have happened, because I was in the hospital 7 days and full care, food, treatment, medical attention, everything. And when we were leaving the hospital, you know, my mom was just like, "Oh, I wonder how much this is gonna cost." Like, we didn't have to pay a penny in
Mhm.
Brazil. Had I been in America, that would have been $30,000 for a Band-Aid. So it was kind of like another blessing along the way. So I get back to America, and then this is when I start to really dive into the spiritual world. I start reading books by Dolores Cannon, start watching her videos, Abraham Hicks, Neville Goddard, a lot of spiritual YouTubers. I read The Law of One. David Hawkins had a book called Letting Go, as well as a book called Power versus Force, which was one of my favorites. Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now. So I'm like in this rabbit hole and reading and digesting everything because I can't make sense of what I just went through. And I after a month, like I would go and stay at a friend's house for like a week at a time because I was still trying to get my weight back. It took over a month for me to finally fully recover from the malaria and just to get my energy back. Like I would fall asleep anywhere. So after that, after about a month, and now we're in October of 2019, I said I still want to go in for my trip. I still want to go and do my year long trip because at this point I'm technically homeless because remember I gave away my apartment. I don't have anything. So all I got is my one bag still. and I decided to go back to Brazil. And in Brazil, this is when I started to meet a lot of different spiritual people. Like I met her comedic healers and orishas in Brazil, like going to like these spiritual, deeply spiritual events and like parties. Like I would just run into people. Then after that, I actually went back to Ghana. I had to go back to Ghana for another project, and this time still more and more spiritual moments started happening. And then I started going to different countries again in Southeast Asia. So now we're in January, and I'm in Cambodia, I'm in Myanmar, I'm in Laos, which is one of my favorite places. And in Laos, every morning at like 5 a.m. before the sun rises, they have what they call like the walk of the monks. So there's like hundreds of monks walking in the morning, and they're giving little offerings to the people that stand along the side. Like, so a lot of tourists come just to see this magical event of the monks. I'm in Myanmar, I'm watching all the little offerings happen. So everywhere I go, I am seeing worldly spiritual practices. And I'm meeting the most amazing people, and I'm having the most crazy synchronicities. And I walk around Rwanda. I sleep in a tent for 3 days in Namibia. Like literally, I am literally searching for that thing you asked about. I'm searching for meaning. I'm searching for purpose. I'm searching for who I am in my core. And so this part of the journey was more impactful than any other part of the journey of my whole life, because now I am really starting from absolute scratch to figure out. So I'm not doing it for social media anymore. I'm not doing it for a travel show. Now I'm doing it for my soul. And I
If I
decided
was to just stop you right there for just one moment,
yeah.
so I could just sit back, I just wanted to ask you, you were in your NDE, you had um, encountered four beings,
Hmm.
feminine in nature.
Feminine energy. Yep.
Um, Now, did you see these beings or did you just feel them?
I saw them. I saw them. I saw
Okay.
them
What
and I
did they
felt
look
them.
like?
I would say they were, I would say like the height. I remember the height for sure.
Yep. Very
And
tall.
very tall, very like 10 feet, 9 feet. And I remember it was like a thinness, but a flowiness. So it felt like they had a flow. I remember a flow. That's the main only word I can remember is just like this deep flow. The movements were very slow and intentional. And I started researching like Arcturians and
Mm,
Palladians and those type of beings. But it felt to me, it felt like aliens
okay.
more than angels. And after I've done my research, it's almost like it's almost like we as humans, there's an evolution that happens. Like we're in the 3D, right?
Right.
So, the 3D, 45D. We're in the 3D. So these 3D bodies can only hold so much energy. We can only do so much. Like the laws of gravity and these different laws control us. These beings felt like evolved versions of us. And the more research I've done, they may be in the seventh or eighth dimension. And that may be where our souls really are. And I just remember feeling
Your
no
higher
fear.
self, you mean? Like your
Yeah.
higher self is up there, we're down here.
Yep, for sure. 1,000%. Like the term higher self resonated with me so deeply.
Hmm.
And that's the perfect word for it. So it felt like four versions of our higher selves.
Right.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so were these beings light? Like were they made of light?
Mhm. Yep. They were definitely made of light. It
Yeah,
was light and warmth, but the warmth was love. So it was light and love.
that's right. Right.
Yep. Yep. And
Isn't that
that's what it felt
something?
like. Yeah, it's really you get to think about it. So the thought of it and the feeling of it and experience of it, it kept me not tethered to this world. That's what it was. I wasn't even right now I'm not tethered completely to this world like I was once before.
How has your life changed since your NDE and since learning that about yourself, the higher self? Do you feel like you're still searching?
There's a I feel like the gift has been unlocked. But I would say that there's a very, very important part of this journey before we get to how you and I met or how you found me, is that I went to India for my birthday. And right before that, you got to remember this is March 2020. So we all know that the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And I ended up the day before the borders closed, I ended up going to Bali, and I spent 14 months in Bali from March of 2020 until actually more than 14 months until uh, the end of November in
Okay.
2021.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in Bali for about 15, 16 months. And that is where I started to learn about all the spirituality and tried all the modalities, everything from DMT to yoga to breath work. I did
Mm-hmm.
psilocybin mushrooms daily. And so those took me, you see what I'm saying? Like breath work can
Yes.
take you to that next level.
Mm-hmm.
Yoga, meditation can take you to that next level. And so I'm learning from all these amazing teachers. So now the spiritual practices are they're still coming to me. And and especially mushrooms. Mushrooms are so amazing because think about it, they are all on the mycelium network, and that network connects all of the mushrooms to each other, and that
Right.
is a perfect analogy for how I felt connected in the other realm, in the afterlife.
Hmm.
And so I was kept chasing that connection. And but then after that beautiful time period in Bali, I have a ton of stories, but we're going to keep moving on. But I had to come back to America to just because I missed home. I missed home. I missed my
Mm-hmm.
family, and I didn't think Bali was sustainable. And so when I came home, that is when the dark night of the soul happened. So I got back home to America, November 20, November 2021, and then I had learned about this beautiful self knowledge system called human design while in Bali. And that's what I
Mm-hmm.
started to really connect with. I started to become and train for over a year to become a human design analyst. And I had a ton of amazing clients, everybody from millionaires to Lenny Kravitz was one of my clients. So I was on FaceTime on Zoom with Lenny Kravitz for a few hours, giving him some advice in his human design. And so that was what made me feel connected to source.
Okay.
That was what I was fighting for and searching for, was connection to source. But the worst thing happened when I got back to America. I completely let everything go because Bali, they call Bali Mama Bali because
Mm-hmm.
Bali has such a deep feminine energy that was
Mm-hmm.
very connected to those four figures. Even Brazil has a very, very feminine energy. So a lot of the places I was traveling to, even Africa, they call it Mama Africa. A lot of the places I was
Mm-hmm.
traveling to had feminine energy. America, especially LA, that is not feminine energy. That's
Yeah.
capitalism. And I
Mm-hmm.
succumbed to all of that energy. I went back to being a photographer, or at least I tried. And the disconnect from my spiritual self was my downfall. So I started going back into a weed dependency. I started having very, very empty sex and partying. I started to
Mm-hmm.
pop pills, and I was deeply depressed for literally the last 3 years. So from 2022 to 2025, when I lived in LA, I ended up in jail for drug possession. Like literally, my life fell
Oh.
apart after this NDE. So I'm spending this beautiful time in Bali, listening to Dolores Cannon, meditating every day, and then a year later, I am in jail for drug possession. So I wanted to bring that up. I think that's very important to share
Yeah, it is.
because there there is a period where we have to face our shadows. And even though I had the NDE, I never healed the shadows from my previous life. I tried to build a spiritual ego and ignore what really I needed to heal. And so that's a super important part of my process and part of my story because that's when I learned the most about myself. And that's when I learned the most about my purpose. And I spent some time after I left LA in May, I spent some time in New York. I was still trying to be a photographer and still like it cannot work. It was it MJ, it just nothing was working because I kept avoiding the gifts
Yeah.
that the figures gave me. I kept avoiding. I was given the most beautiful gift in the world, the gift of connection, the gift of sharing this story, and I never told this story online for 5 years. I might have told it one time in 2020 when it first happened,
Mm-hmm.
2019, but after that, I never told this story, especially not on TikTok. And one day, after just continuously at my lowest, my absolute lowest, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I had no idea how I was going to make money, support myself. I moved back then with my parents in November, and I remember being so frustrated, so depressed. And I got on TikTok. By this time, I had never really, I talked about spiritual stuff here and there, but by this time, I said, F it. And I just started talking about why is my life so unfulfilled? Why do I feel so drained? Why is there no purpose? Like literally, I trauma dumped on TikTok.
It's
and
okay.
and not only was it okay, MJ, literally over 60,000 people resonated with that message. I started getting all of these replies, like thousands and thousands of messages like I feel the same way, thousands messages of just support, and people came out of nowhere to really relate. And I said, wow, the first time I'm like truly vulnerable on TikTok at my lowest, that is when my soul tribe showed up. So I took a few days and I said, you know what? Let me try it again. And I started to share more like little breadcrumbs. So this is all like last month. This is all very recent. And I started this series called I Died in 2019. And that's
Oh,
when that's on TikTok. And so just like little short videos, like maybe 3 minutes, just saying, so when I died in 2019, and I would talk about a different subject. And that series started really picking up traction and they started going viral. And it wasn't until last week, this was a week ago, that I made the video where everybody started finding me. Because in that time, I've been on five. You're the fifth podcast I've been on in the last week. And I made the video called I Died in 2019, The Fractal. And this is when I talked about one of my favorite concepts that I've seen since my journey about how we're all part of a soul tribe. And people have different soul tribes. And it's almost like a sorority or fraternity in the other realm. And when you come down to earth, we start to find each other. And we find each other through our voices.
I
It's
truly believe that.
you'll be listening to a podcast or you'll be on TikTok or you'll be on social media, and this person could look nothing like anybody you would ever, you know, hang out with. They could be a different race, a different gender, a different orientation, but there is something about the tone and the frequency of their voice that hits you, and it's a resonance that is so deep to your soul that you can just recognize this person as part of your fractal. And when I made that video, that's when everything blew up because it was just so honest and it was just so vulnerable. And that's the one that that I'm so happy I made it. I was terrified, but I was so happy I made it because that's what led me ultimately to be here with you right now. And that's why I'm so grateful that I decided to use my voice. And that's my new message. So when you ask what has changed within me, it is not only am I not afraid to use my voice and tell my story, but now I hope to inspire many other people to do the same.
So I love that you said that because I think I was just saying that when we started recording. So that's how I find people. I didn't find you on TikTok, but I
Mm.
did see you on another podcast, which I heard and it resonated with me.
Hmm.
Um, and then I knew that I wanted to have you on here. But
Yeah.
one thing I've never heard of is someone who's had an NDE and fall back into,
Yeah.
um, all the ego
Hmm.
type living. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that because sometimes it's like having a spiritual awakening and going backwards. It does not matter how many times that happens. The fact that what matters is that you try every single time. That's what matters. So, but having an NDE and then going back is very, very unique. Um, why do you think you had that NDE?
I, I feel like I was meant to have that NDE for to wake up, to awaken, and the gifts that they gave me. The more that I surrender, the better. And I think that my incarnation on this earth. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Soul, but that's one of my favorite movies, and I think it perfectly. You seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you get it. Pixar really knows how to make cartoons for kids that are really for adults. And I think that when I saw Soul, I said, this is exactly what I feel that this life journey is about. Because if you remember in Soul, when the people pass, they go back up to the realm and they go through this portal that deletes them. They delete the self, and then they become the baby souls. And then you see all the little baby souls. They learn like, oh, you're gonna play the piano. You're gonna be a doctor. You're gonna do all these things on the outside. But at the same time, they give each soul a very, very special gift that nobody can see, not even the soul. And that soul has to remember that gift in this lifetime
Mm-hmm.
to fully complete their mission. And I had the NDE because I think that on the outside, I'm a black gay man who was so popular on television and lived that life of popularity and notoriety. And I think that the universe and source is using me and using that idea that I was so in front of the camera so that in this new life it won't feel weird getting back in front of the camera to deliver the message that's helping so many people. And in this time period, since I dropped the TikTok and I've been on all these videos, the outpouring of love has been it has opened me up in so many ways. I've gotten emails and letters from people that have burst into tears crying. I've had people that have, and I'm talking about hundreds at this point, from all over, from Israel to Senegal, all over the world, to all places that I have been before. And now I'm not going there as a travel influencer. I'm reaching people with my story in my heart. So I think if there was any reason why I had the NDE, and I think that it was just so perfect that my previous life, I was such a public figure to some respects, not super famous, but to some respects. And then now it's the surrender to telling this story and meeting people like yourself and being so grateful to be on your platform that you built up. And I think that was the purpose of everything.
Elton, are you afraid to die?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think that our souls, or what I not even I think our souls are infinite. This isn't it, if you think about a soul, like even the idea or the concept of dying, right? When you die, people historically people think that, oh, you're a soul, you go to heaven, and then you live out eternity in heaven, right? But what sense does it make that your soul would start when you were born? To me, that doesn't make sense. It feels like this is just an infinite loop of, oh, okay, I want to go back to Earth in this new body. And I even have channeled my previous life through Akashic Records. I was a white woman in my previous life. And the funny, her name was Elizabeth. She's from like
Wow.
Rochester, New York. I could feel her. And she was a hippie in the 60s and 70s. That's my girl. And
Interesting.
it's funny because now whenever I tell my story, I would say a good 70% of my followers and 70% of people I engage with and talk to are white women. And I just feel so connected. When I was in Bali, I had a group of white women that I would just hang with, literally. And so now I don't see race at all. I don't see gender. And I have to remind myself that, oh, I get reminded that I'm a black man, but but in my mind, I'm just no different than you or the next person. So
No, you're not. I
yeah.
grew up that way. I never thought of race. My father was black, like your color. Mother
Hmm.
was Irish, and it didn't even dawn on me that I was different. But for those, Elton, who feel really deeply
Hmm.
connected to you or love your story and want to learn more about you or the work that you do, can you
Yeah.
share the services or offerings or published works that you currently have going on?
Oh, awesome. Yes. So right now I'm building my platform up, and the backing of it is human design. Human design was absolutely the best system and tool and just mode of self-knowledge that I've ever experienced in my life. And I'm now sharing my gift of human design with the world. So if you want to follow me online, I would start with TikTok. That's a little bit of like daily doses of just moments and funny moments, and that's Elton Raw. So it's L10, which is Elton, kind of like in my own cool way, and Raw, RAW. And again, the Raw means reality is already written. That's what it means. And that same name is on YouTube. In YouTube, I teach more about the whole experience, and I give you a little bit more long form, and really starting to build an amazing community of over 40,000 people.
Wow.
And I have a Substack as well. So I would tell everybody, just follow Elton Raw on everything, and get ready because we're launching this really huge community. I met some amazing people recently that are going to be helping me spearhead this movement, and we're going to unlock and help you unlock all of your gifts. So please lock in with us.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
Elton, I have just one last question for you
Yes.
because it is a signature question for the return and it honors the heart of my channel. And
Okay.
so that question would be every soul who returns brings back one truth. What truth did you return with?
Mm. The truth that I came back with was the need for interdependence. Independence is cool, but what we need in this new earth, this new world, is the interdependence. We need to come together to establish truth because truth cannot be established alone.
That's right. Very, very good. I love that. Elton, I want to truly thank you for being here. I want to thank you for going through all the technical difficulties that I've had. So thank you for being patient. But mostly, thank you for sharing your story, your vulnerability, and the wisdom you carried back with you. Because these experiences, I personally know, aren't always easy to speak about. They're not easy to put into words, yet you've done it with heart. And your journey reminds me that even through illness and suffering, uncertainty, something greater is always present, guiding, holding, and teaching us. So I want to thank you very much for sharing your story here with us today.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for building this platform, MJ. It's really beautiful. Your energy is, and your aura is beautiful and magnetic.
Thank
I
you.
still do not believe you're in your 50s, so I'll have to see. You have to send me the birth certificate when we get off the
I
call.
will. You can check out my live, I promise. I'm live on, you can check me out. I'm 52.
Yeah.
Elton's, your experience was unbelievable. So, yeah,
Thank you
beautiful.
so much for having me, and
You're welcome.
again, much success. I'll be checking back on more episodes in the future.
And to the audience, may Elton's experience remind us that even in the most fragile moments of the body, something within us remains eternal, aware, and deeply held. Whether you see these stories as spiritual, mystical, or simply human, one thing is more to us than this moment, more to life, to fear, and that love surrounds us more than we actually realize. And until next time, stay open, stay curious, and keep returning to the truth within you.